Tim OCONNELL Last updated 1700, September 18, 2017. Port Nelson has announced a $10.8 million net profit for the 20,162,017 financial year. New infrastructure in the lift and cargo, cruise ship and logging volumes has given Port Nelson a pleasing financial return for the year. The company reported another strong result for the full 20,162,017 financial year with an operating profit of $22.8 million, up on the $18.3 million for the previous year. The net profit after tax result was $10.8 million, double the $5.3 million in 2016 that included $2.7 million set aside for Caldwell Basin dredging and stabilization expenses. Port Nelson CEO Martin Byrne. Port Nelson Chairman Phil Luff reported to shareholders at the company's on Monday that overall cargo volumes were up with logs, motor vehicles and wine-related products all performing strongly. Given the significant investment in infrastructure in recent years, it is encouraging to see the growth in cargo volumes, he said. Processed forestry volumes were in line with the previous year and apple volumes were around 13% up on 2016. Port Nelson Chairman Phil Luff. Container volumes had reached record numbers with the 100,000 20-foot equivalent units level being surpassed for the first time. Weekly container services from Maersk, Pacifica, MSC and ANL were joined by the new Sea Trade service in February, which had brought increased shipping options for the region's importers and exporters. Cruise vessel numbers also improved during the year, with 7 vessels calling over the summer season. Log volumes grew 30% in the last 12 months, which Luff said had put significant pressure on port infrastructure. In the 20,152,016 financial year, Nelson Forests Limited, Tasman Day Forests, P.F. Olson and Tenco Limited exported a total of 671,000 revenue tons of logs through the port. However, he advised that Port Nelson would work with log exporters to increase available land for log storage going forward. A $4 million investment in the rationalization of Port Nelson's log storage areas in 2016 is now being followed up by a further $3 million investment over the coming 12 months, largely involving demolition of buildings and sealing of additional storage areas. Port Nelson Chief Executive Martin Byrne said the net profit figure was the most pleasing aspect of the announcement in terms of comparison with previous years. He also acknowledged the strong cargo numbers and increased log exports to Asia as key contributors to the port's current position. We're fortunate to live in a region where we've got a number of commodities right across the board that are in huge demand. The port benefits from that, and at the end of the day the ratepayers benefit as well. While the impact of last year's earthquake on Wellington's Centreport operations had provided some positive spin-offs to Nelson, Byrne did not believe it was a big factor in the overall financial result. The log volumes to start with had nothing to do with Wellington, and we were capturing a lot of the Marlborough cargo that potentially could go either way prior to the quake, he said. It's probably helped us a bit since then, but we've done a lot of work with Marlborough exporters to provide the services they're looking for. Byrne said the port would continue to work with importers and exporters to see if volumes could be increased further. However, these discussions would be guided by overseas buyer demand. A number of key infrastructure projects were also completed during the financial year. Most notable of these was the first-stage completion of the 13,000 M2 Patterson Logistics Center in February, which had enabled the growth of wine industry-related volumes to the port. The 9,700 M2 Stage 2 development began construction in June and is expected to be completed in December. Other finished projects included the plant and food research development on Ackerston Street, which opened in May, and an all-weather workshop facility on Rogers Street in March. The long-awaited remediation of the Caldwell Slipway area is due to get underway in early November at a total cost of around $8.2 million, to be jointly shared between Port Nelson and the Ministry for the Environment. Stuff.